Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of America's most chilling and honestly, one of its weirdest unsolved mysteries. We're talking about a killer who didn't just haunt the streets of New Orleans. He did it to the sound of jazz.
So, picture this. It's the early 20th century. A shadowy figure is moving through the city, breaking into homes in the dead of night. They're leaving behind this trail of absolutely brutal and totally unsolved crimes, and the whole community is just gripped by fear.
But here's where it gets really strange. The killer's most infamous act? It wasn't even a murder. It was a bizarre theatrical demand he made to every single person in the city, a demand that has forever cemented this case in American folklore.
Okay, let's really set the scene. The year is 1918. The Great War is finally ending. But for the people of New Orleans, a whole new kind of war is just beginning, right on their own doorsteps, waged by an enemy no one could see.
And this unknown assailant, well, he quickly earned a terrifying name that was whispered through the city's vibrant, close-knit neighborhoods. He was known simply as the Axeman.
So, as the attacks kept happening, people started to notice something. A pattern. A really disturbing one. Both the police and the public began to piece together the killer's very specific and very terrifying signature.
Yeah, the Axeman's reign of terror was incredibly swift and brutal. It was all packed into this intense 18-month window. It kicked off in the spring of 1918, and then, just as suddenly as it all started, it was over by the fall of 1919.
Now this is where things get really fascinating when you look at the killer's methods. First off, he disproportionately targeted Italian-American grocers, which, in a time of high anti-immigrant sentiment, hints at a possible motive. But the other details are even stranger. He often got in without force. He used a weapon he found inside the house. And, get this, he never stole a thing. This wasn't about robbery, no way. This was about something way more personal and sinister. Okay, so fast forward to the spring of 1919. The city's terror is at an all-time high. And that is when this case goes from just terrifying to downright theatrical. Why? Because the killer himself decides to communicate.
A letter shows up at a local newspaper claiming to be from the Axeman. In it, he calls himself a demon from the hottest hell and then makes this just unbelievable demand. He says he's a huge fan of jazz music, and he swears that on a particular night, every person will be spared as long as a jazz band is in full swing inside their home. The threat was clear: play jazz or else.
So what do you do when a killer gives you an ultimatum like that? You know, hide? Panic? Well, the people of New Orleans, they did something different, something defiant, something that was, honestly, perfectly New Orleans.
So, on that specific Tuesday night, the entire city just erupted with music. I mean, the dance halls were packed, people had bands playing in their living rooms, the air was just thick with the sound of jazz, everyone hoping it was enough to ward off the evil lurking in the darkness.
And you know what the craziest part is? It actually worked. That night, there were 0 attacks. Not a single one. The Axeman kept his promise. It's like the entire city was saved by its own soundtrack, which just adds this wild, almost supernatural layer to the killer's legend.
So what happened next? Well, after the final attack in late 1919, the Axeman was just gone. He vanished. Let's look at the investigation, because this is where the trail goes completely cold and the story becomes one of America's most enduring mysteries.
So why did he do it? I mean, that's the big question, right? And to this day, nobody really knows for sure. You've got two main theories. On the one hand, maybe it was ethnic hatred, a targeted campaign against the city's Italian community. On the other hand, maybe he was just a sadist, a killer who reveled in the pure terror and the theatrical chaos he was creating.
But in the end, the police were basically chasing a ghost. You have to remember, this was a time before modern forensics. We're talking no fingerprint databases, no DNA analysis, none of that. They questioned plenty of suspects, sure, but there was never enough hard evidence to link anyone to the crimes. The Axemen simply disappeared into history.
The attacks may have stopped, but the story was just getting started. So why are we still so fascinated by this century-old case? Well, it's all about how these terrifying events transformed from a crime spree into a core piece of New Orleans folklore. I mean, think about it. The Axeman's story has this enduring legacy because it's just such a strange mix of elements. You've got the sheer terror of the crimes, that uniquely bizarre jazz demand, and the complete lack of a resolution. This potent cocktail has cemented the Axeman's place in popular culture, making him an icon of the city's dark and mysterious history.
And that's really the unsettling place we're left. More than a century has passed, and we are no closer to knowing who the Axeman really was. His story is a chilling reminder that some puzzles simply resist explanation, leaving only questions, legends, and the faint sound of jazz in the dark.